Hello everyone, it's Emma and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about real versus fake Christmas trees. Just want to point out that before I did any research for this video, I went in believing 100% fake trees over real trees. Happy December, happy start to the Christmas season. Yes, it does start in December, by the way. But if you do start to celebrate in November, no judgment on you. You can start to celebrate whenever you want, though I personally start to celebrate in December. So this video probably is coming out a little bit late, unfortunately, because I know many of you have probably already started to put up your Christmas trees, have probably already purchased your tree for the year, for the season. So yeah, this video is probably coming out a little bit late. But anyway, for me, I correlate the Christmas season, the holiday season with December. So that's why I scheduled this video for December. I didn't think that through until like literally right now as I sat down to film this. Nonetheless, this video will be out for the rest of time. It will be out next year when people go to make this decision. This is something that has been on my mind like even since I was a young person, before I even was concerned with environmental impact of things. Are real trees or fake trees better to buy? For the environment, I thought it would be an interesting topic to talk about. I think a lot of people probably have the same questions as me. Before we dive into that, a few quick things to talk about. If you want to check out my first few videos I made on my YouTube channel, I'll leave them linked down below. They're a little bit old. Like I said, they're a year old at this point, but they'll be linked down below for you. Second, if you find that I talk a little bit too fast for you, there are two things that you can do. You can actually read along with the script linked down below, or you can use the gear icon located right down in this corner to change the speed of this video. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right in. So the first thing that we need to address is that real trees take time, energy, water, sunlight, all that good stuff to grow. But then again, fake trees also take time, energy, and resources to make as well. If they both take time, energy, and resources, which ones are better? Let's explore that. Let's go ahead and talk about real trees first. Obviously, trees are great for the environment. And I actually just finished watching Kiss the Ground. It is a great documentary. I will leave that documentary linked down below. It's on Netflix if you just want to go do a quick search for it. It talks about regenerative farming, and I'm not going to talk about that today. I'd like to talk about that in the future. But basically, what that documentary talks about is how plants are great for the environment and plants are great for carbon sequestration. The more trees we plant, the more carbon that gets sucked out of the atmosphere. There's one great reason for planting Christmas trees. A single tree can absorb over 1 ton of CO2 in its lifetime. In the US alone, over 350 to 500 million real Christmas trees are grown every single year, and the average tree is harvested after 10 years. This means that tree farms can absorb about 35 million tons of CO2 per year, which is the equivalent produced to provide about 3 million Americans with power. But what happens when the tree gets chopped down? And this is where I always got hung up too when I was young. I'm like, chopping down trees is so horrible. It's horrible for the environment, it's horrible for the animals that live there. We should not be chopping trees down, right? It's actually not a bad thing. The good news with chopping trees down, especially in tree farms, is that they will get planted again. And the good news with supply and demand is the demand. If one tree gets chopped down, the tree farms automatically assume that at least 2 more trees will be purchased with that one tree. For every tree chopped down, at least 2, if not 3 more trees will be planted, meaning the size of the tree farm will continue to grow, meaning more and more and more trees will be getting planted. So while yes, this is a monoculture, which isn't necessarily great, it's at least a long-term monoculture, so it's not too terrible. And here's a quick definition of monoculture if you don't know what that is. A monoculture is the cultivation of a single crop in a given area. Like I mentioned in the past, I want to talk more about monocultures in the future, so if you're interested in that, definitely hit subscribe so you can stay tuned for that. But in short, monocultures can be bad for the soil because planting only one crop in the area can suck all the nutrients out of the crop. We learned this with the Dust Bowl back in the 1930s because all of the farmers were planting corn, for example. When farmers continued to plant corn over decades, corn continued to suck the same nutrients out of the soil, when instead they needed to crop cycle, which is what we learned to do. So the good news with tree farms though is that they still allow other crops, I guess, maybe not crops, but other species to grow in the area, like grass and flowers and weeds. So it's not really a monoculture entirely. But pine trees always take the same nutrient out of the soil, which in the long run could lead to soil degradation. But like I said, I think as long as they're still also like allowing for other plant species to thrive in the area, like flowers and bushes and shrubs, it should still be okay. Since these trees are grown specifically for the holidays, there is really no harm in cutting it down. People often think, myself included, that cutting down trees is bad, period. But like I said earlier, if people didn't cut down these trees, there would be no market for these trees in the first place, meaning that there would be no more trees being planted. So once I started doing research for this video, I actually started realizing the importance of cutting down these trees. So while yes, it might seem sad to cut down these trees. The more we cut down, the more we plant. I don't know. Like I said in the beginning, obviously it is great to grow these trees because they sequester carbon. Every tree we cut down, 2 or 3 more trees get planted. It's kind of a game of give and take. So really, the more trees that are cut down, even more and more and more trees get planted, which means more and more and more CO2 gets sucked out of the air. The important thing here is cutting down Christmas trees from tree farms. Don't just go out and cut down trees willy-nilly from established forests. And the other important thing too is that the tree farms are replacing the trees that are cut down. If a tree farm just, went out and planted 10,000 trees, they let all 10,000 trees get cut down, and then that was the end, that would be bad. Or if, someone just bought a bunch of public land, went out and chopped down a bunch of pine trees and then never replanted them, that would be bad. The important thing is that we are replanting the trees. It has actually been proven that using our resources responsibly and carefully can be a great benefit to the resources and help protect our forests. For every tree planted, farmers plant 1 to 3 seedlings. This was another thing too that Kiss the Ground actually touched on as well, is that by using our resources, using the earth and our surrounding areas responsibly, and actually learning to work hand in hand with the earth, the animals, the plants, we can actually learn to thrive. This is just one way that we have actually learned to work hand in hand and not exploit Mother Nature. But something else too is that you actually don't even have to chop down a tree. There are some programs throughout the world that actually allow you to buy a living tree. This probably doesn't work if you want to get, a 12, 20 foot tree. You might have to settle for like a 3 to 6 foot tree, something a little smaller. But you can buy a living tree, meaning at the end of the Christmas season, December 26th, January 1st, whenever you decide to quit celebrating, you can plant your tree outside. That way it can continue to sequester carbon. One big con with trees though, with real trees, is that they do require a lot of water, especially in the early stages of their lives. But most tree farms in the US are located in areas where water is not scarce. An extra eco-friendly step to take is to opt for organic trees. You might not think this is important, especially if it's something that you're not eating, but it does make a difference since spraying pesticides and herbicides can affect the environment and workers using them. But what do you do with your tree after the holidays, especially one that you actually chop down? This is what's really important. Please do not send your tree to the landfill. I touched on this a lot in the video I made about bioplastics. I specifically stressed do not send your bioplastics to landfill because when you send organic matter to the landfill, it creates methane, which methane is actually 23 more times more potent than carbon. So the same would go for your tree. If your tree goes to landfill, it sits there, it ferments, it creates methane. Methane then gets released into the atmosphere. It's more potent than carbon dioxide. So the best thing that you can do with your tree, if your city has a local compost, that's great. A lot of big cities too, after Christmas, have like a mulching day. You just have to figure out when that is, put your tree out on the curb, and then your city will collect it for mulch. Some other things too is that you can actually just take care of it yourself. You can turn it into firewood, you can use it for crafts. Burning, composting, or wood chipping actually reduces the carbon footprint of your live tree by up to 80%. Now, let's take a crack at fake trees. Just want to point out that before I did any research for this video, I went in believing 100% fake trees over real trees. Even Dan, I asked him the day I did the research for this video, he's an environmental science major, like he's about to graduate like next week. He said himself too, fake trees, 100%. Like even hardcore environmentalists are like, yes, fake trees. Just want to put that out there. Anyway, let's dive into fake trees, shall we? I had a fake tree growing up, and I think maybe that's why it swayed me. My mom still uses the same fake tree I had growing up. So she's had it for at least 22 years because this will be my 22nd Christmas. And so that's great, right? Having it for that many years. So if you buy a fake tree, you use it for 10 or more years, you actually reach the same environmental impact of that of a real tree. So that's great, but we still have to think of the end of life because that fake tree will have to be disposed of one day. Even if you use it until the day you die, and then you pass it on to your kids, and they pass it on to their kids, hundreds of years. Let's just say it miraculously survives hundreds of years. This piece of metal and plastic, one day will have to be disposed of because it is metal and plastic. And unfortunately, plastic never actually does decompose. It is mixed materials as well. Some of it even is electronic components too. Another great part about fake trees too is that it can be reused, literally for decades, like we've seen with my mom's tree. But it turns out a 2-meter tall artificial tree has a carbon footprint of about 40 kilograms of greenhouse gases, mostly due to it being made out of plastic, which is just petroleum. It is nearly double the carbon footprint of a real tree. Like I said, you would have to reuse your artificial tree at least 10 times, which is 10 seasons, to keep the environmental impact lower than that of a real tree. So thankfully, my mom has used her tree 20 plus years, so she has already reached that of the environmental impact of a real tree. But I bought my fake tree 4 years ago, so I'm gonna have to use mine another 6 years just to reach that of the environmental impact of a real tree. But I bought mine unknowing of this. But I also bought mine knowing that we were gonna live the military lifestyle, moving from base to base, not knowing if we were gonna have access to a real tree and all sorts of things like that, which thankfully I was right, because we live on a subtropical island in the middle of Japan. Not in the middle of Japan. We live in the middle of the ocean. We don't have access to pine trees. So if we want to celebrate using a tree, we have to have a fake tree. There was even a study done in 2017 that found that every year, 6 million trees are discarded. That number includes artificial trees. 14% of people interviewed said that they opted for an artificial tree, but will be throwing it out after just 1 use. So it takes 10 years to balance the carbon footprint of a real versus fake tree. Imagine getting a fake tree every year. So please, if you use a fake tree, do not treat it like a single-use object, please. Like, I know I buy single-use plastic objects too. I'm gonna be doing a video about that probably later this month, about all the things I buy in single-use plastic, but artificial Christmas trees should not be a single-use item. That is you. If that has ever been you, just think about how much oil went into making that. Somebody had to make that, probably in a sweatshop. Think about the person who made that item before you throw it away. If you so desperately have to buy yourself a new tree just because it's trendy, at least put that tree in a donation pile. Take it to Goodwill, take it to the thrift shop, take it to the thrift shop, take it to a homeless shelter. Please give it a better life than the landfill. That's all I'm gonna say. And unfortunately, these days, items really aren't made to last. My mom's tree that was made probably 30 years ago was truly made to last. But an artificial tree made now in 2020, it's not gonna be made to last until 2050 because they wanna be able to make money next year. They wanna make more money. So that's why they wanna make things that aren't gonna last them 30 years. Hopefully that makes sense. And the average family only keeps their tree for about 5 to 6 years. So anyway, to wrap up the section about fake trees, if you have a fake tree, take good care of it, make it last, store it well, be kind to it. Don't just throw it around. Don't just toss it up in your attic. Be kind to it and make it last so that you can actually get the environmental impact out of it and you don't have to throw it away after 1 use. So let's just quickly talk about what fake trees are made of. Artificial trees are made of polyvinyl chloride, a kind of plastic derived from petroleum and can contain lead or other harmful toxins. Not to mention, they are most likely made in China, which isn't inherently bad, but most of their electricity is generated from burning coal, which of course is one of the dirtiest sources of energy. Not to mention, then you have to factor in the emissions of transportation as well, because I feel like most of the Christmas trees in the world are probably purchased in Europe and in the US, because that's where Christmas is celebrated most throughout the world. So then they have to ship those Christmas trees from China to those parts of the world, which could be anywhere from like 4 to 7 to 9,000 miles. And of course, most of the shipping methods contain diesel-powered ships, diesel-powered trucks, and even coal-burning trains. Okay, so now that we've really gone deep dive into both types of trees, which option is best? If you haven't been able to deduce that for yourself, I'll just tell you. Real trees are probably best, unless you already have a fake tree. So, like I already said, I already own a fake tree. I'm not gonna throw away my fake tree so that way I can buy a new tree now every single year. If I already have a fake tree, I'm gonna continue to use that and get as much life of it out as I can until it's absolutely broken. And then once I get to that point, then I'm never gonna buy a fake tree again. Then I'm gonna use a real tree every single year. That's the best option for me personally. If you already do not own a fake tree, then a real tree is the best for you. Hopefully that makes sense. There's a few more things at stake too. It really does depend on your lifestyle. Are you unable to house a real tree and dispose of it responsibly, but you can take care of a fake tree for decades? Opt for a fake tree. Do you have the space to take care of a real tree and can dispose of it correctly? Opt for a real tree. I think what that comes down to as well is, do you live in a small city that doesn't have compost and you don't have a place to burn your tree? You don't have access to a compost bin yourself? You probably shouldn't get a real tree, but you have the attic space, you have the family members that will be able to take care of a fake tree for decades. That might be the best for you. But say you live in an eco-friendly city like San Francisco, where they probably commercial compost or a mulching site. A real tree is probably best for you. So you just have to weigh those options, see what your city has to offer, and other things like that. As we saw, real trees clearly greatly outweigh the fake ones. Real ones absorb CO2, return back to the earth, and create much less damage, while artificial trees are made of oil, made using oil, and shipped using oil. Overall, they're not great. If you have the means, go for a real tree. If you already have a fake one, use it until it is no longer usable. Take good care of it, store it well, and get the most out of it like my mom and countless others have. And please don't treat them as single use. And like I already talked about with my tree, I chose our tree for specific reasons because I knew we were going to be living this mobile military lifestyle. But moving forward, once this tree is no longer usable, I will 100% be choosing a real tree now that I know it's better for the environment. I know so many people are in the same boat that I was in like a month ago before I did this research, that there's no way a real tree is better for the environment because you're cutting down trees. But it turns out because of the method of supply and demand, real trees are better for the environment, because in the end, the more trees you plant, the more carbon that we can sequester from the environment, the more carbon that we can sequester from the environment, from the air, from the atmosphere, the better off that we are. And of course, we need to lower that amount of carbon in the first place. So if you haven't seen the movie Kiss the Ground, the documentary, I'll leave it linked down below. I highly encourage it. I'll also leave a great YouTube video linked up here and linked down below from my friend Susie from Chew on That. She did a great review of that documentary. She went really in depth about her views, her opinions on that. Really encourage you to check that out as well. Not to mention, if you'd like some vegan recipes, I did a collaboration with Susie from Chew on That as well as Coco Shin. We did it for Thanksgiving, but those recipes can be for Christmas as well. So while I'm on the topic of Christmas, if you guys want to check those videos out, I'll leave those linked down below as well. That's all I have for this video. If you have any more ideas for some Christmas content, definitely let me know down below. I'd love to make some more Christmas content for this year, but I'll also leave my past Christmas content linked down below. I hope that you learned something from this video. I hope that you found this valuable. If you did, I would really appreciate a thumbs up, and I hope that you share this with others because I really learned a lot doing research from this video, and it really opened my eyes. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to learn some more about this. If you're new here, I would really appreciate if you hit the subscribe button. It would really make my day. But yeah, if you're not subscribed, I talk about all sorts of things zero waste, especially about how to make zero waste living easy, free, and fun for everyone. And I post new videos every Monday and Thursday Japan Standard Time, which is Sunday and Wednesday in the US. And until next time, remember that these small changes you make have a big impact in the long run. Bye guys. Happy start to the Christmas season. Yes, it starts in December. Just kidding. If you start to celebrate in February, let's start over, shall we? A monoculture is a cultivate. Wow. Actually, yes. If you have it for over 10 plus years, if you buy a fake Christmas tree, use it for over 10 years, you get these. So yeah, I guess that's it.